Hello, my dear students. Have a nice day to all. This session is to continue the second chapter of your social science textbook. The chapter name is First World War and Russian Revolution. In the previous class, we have learned that almost all the European countries got into a competition to establish their colonies in Europe, Asia, and Africa. During this time, a lot of dissatisfaction was created among these countries in terms of socio-economic and political reasons. And this dissatisfaction ultimately led to First World War. So in this session, we are going to learn the factors that caused First World War. First World War was one of the most heartbreaking and unforgettable events of the modern world. There were many reasons responsible for this war. The First World War began on 1st August 1914. The seeds of First World War were sown many years ago when the Sedan War took place in the year 1871 between Germany and France. In this war, France was defeated by Germany and they made France to sign a treaty. The name of that treaty was Frankfurt Treaty. According to that Frankfurt Treaty, France had to pay a war fine and their two provinces, namely Alsace and Lorraine provinces of France, were to be given to Germany. This was a great humiliation for France and they were waiting to retaliate. They were waiting to take a revenge on Germany. Thus, we can say that the Frankfurt Treaty itself was the cause of First World War. There are mainly 6 reasons responsible for First World War. The first factor is economic factors. During 19th century, England had established its colonies in vast empire in Asia and African provinces. Due to the industrialization and colonization, England acquired huge wealth from these Asian and African countries. Thus, in the last part of 19th century, Germany also entered into this competition and became a strong opponent for England in Asian and African markets. Germany began to sell goods at cheaper rates as compared to England and France. Thus, the dominance of England and France in these markets was broken up by Germany. Thus, a feeling of hostility or enmity was developed between Germany and England. And ultimately, this feeling led to First World War. The next factor is militarism. All the European countries began to expand their military power because a strong military force was necessary for expanding their colonies in various countries. But some countries like Japan, Italy, Germany, they started compulsory military training in their countries. And the production of weapons was also increased under the pretext of self-defense. So this competition to increase the military power created a serious atmosphere of war. The third factor is groupism. Before First World War, the whole world was divided into 2 groups. One group was that of Germany, Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey, whereas the other group was England, France, Russia, Japan, etc. Thus, a feeling of jealousy, enmity, hatred, fear, and mistrust began to develop between these 2 groups, and thus groupism became another factor for creating First World War. The fourth factor is feeling of fierce nationalism. The feeling of extreme nationalism began to develop among the European nations. They developed a feeling of love towards their own land and hatred towards the other nations. The German leader, Kaiser William, was the originator of this strong feeling of nationalism and colonialism because he was overambitious to make Germany a supreme power in the world. He thought that with his strong military power, he would be able to achieve that. Thus, the feeling of strong nationalism became one of the factors of First World War. The next factor is role of newspapers. Newspapers of European countries also had their own role in causing First World War. Most of the articles and write-ups in the newspapers were false, exaggerated, provocative, and humiliating the other nations. Hatred towards the other nations were expressed through these false write-ups. Thus, the role of newspapers also had a great role in creating First World War. The next factor is philosophy about war. During this period, a new thought about war began to spread in European countries, especially in Germany. Many German writers began to popularize the maxims of war. One of the German writers, Trotsky, he published maxims like only the mighty deserve to live. And also another maxims like war alone is the national need. So this kind of thoughts began to spread in all parts of Germany. Another writer, Nietzsche, considered war as a sacred work. War was considered as a sacred work. Thus, this philosophy about war boosted up the outbreak of First World War. Besides all these 6 factors, there was an immediate reason for First World War. The Prince of Austria and his wife, they were assassinated. Assassinated means murdered, killed by a Serbian terrorist organization named Black Hand. Black Hand was the name of an organization, terrorist organization of Serbia. Austria blamed Serbia for this incident, and they ordered Serbia to hand over the culprit to Austria within 48 hours. Serbia tried to say their ignorance in this matter, but Austria was not ready to listen anything from Serbia, and at last they declared war on Serbia. Thus, the First World War began with this incident. So this was the immediate reason for the beginning of First World War. Hope that this topic is clear to all of you. We'll wind up this session here today and we'll continue this chapter in the next session. Until then, take care. Bye.